Yes, a beautiful day. March 2nd, is it? Maybe. Close enough. It's March 2nd, you know? Here I am again at the Hartford Public Safety Complex, the little memorial to stolen valor. And here again, Mr. Hartford Positive for another Thin Blue Lie Tuesday, number 2. That's right. This one I'll commit to, because there's always a lot to talk about the Hartford Police Department. And in similar ways to have last month, it was Black History Month, and the department really did a lot of pantomime to make it seem like they weren't, an institution, a monument to white supremacy, and to try to make us forget the fact again. And I say this not lightly, I say this with a surety. There are white supremacists who still have affiliations to very dangerous, toxic, violent movements in which they're willing to maybe perhaps supersede the Constitution even for their own worldview. I mean this. There's Hartford police officers that are hired by the department right now who feel this way, who could easily be exposed. Like, we've already seen many of them expose themselves online, and the ones who are still hired, and the ones whose names we know about. Like, we could follow them, we could know them, we could expose them, but oh no, the union will step forward and then, oh no, it's harassment of people's political views. So I want to focus on something related to all of this, and that is toxic masculinity within the Hartford Police Department. Because this month is it's Women's Month. So I get to see, of course, the Hartford Police Department already on top of their propaganda when, as we know, through many cases that we know about, let alone all the silent victims and women who work here who've been harassed. Long story short, I want to talk about a few key moments in Hartford police history. Now, I'm going to condense the 90s really quick and just say that from what we know, based on Julio Camacho, again, a suspected person who was behind the assassination of a mistress and the kidnapping of a young girl that's never been solved. And his wife at the time was also a Hartford police officer, so many suspected Hartford police, many people were involved in covering that up. And Julio took the rap for rape, because he and many other Hartford police officers, there were, I believe, 7 officers who were indicted, who were charged in court of sexual assault. Because what they would do in the 90s often is sex workers they would take advantage of late at night. Often, this was a well-known secret. The Hartford police would do this. They'd shake people down, and often it would be, especially these women who would be intoxicated on drugs. It would be rape. It would be textbook rape. These male officers, which is why, flashing back to a few years ago, I don't know if you remember when a woman, it just made the news, she was a friend of mine, tried to report a rape to Hartford police, and they were systematically mocked. And they were said, well, they're not going to believe you, and belittled. So that was the 90s in Hartford police. All right, and keep in mind the people who were around there, people like Chris Lyons, who skate off scot-free, and next thing you know, they're head of a Fox 61 News cold case show where they have control over the media narrative of the police and over things that they don't want you to know about, okay? So his buddy RoboCop Lawler kills somebody in 2005. That's unrelated. So keep in mind that the force is just, it always changes through chiefs. So they even, Chief Darrell Roberts, they were touting his name, I'm sure, last month for Black History Month. I want to talk about, and this is kind of weird to, seg from Women's History Month to talk about, a male officer who sued the department. But I want to mention, and this is in full disclosure, I consider this person almost a friend. I consider him a friend. Brian Foley, one of the few police officers I've really met that I fully respect. I think, we all make mistakes in life, and it set us down really bad career paths, but, we are who we are, and people is people. And Brian Foley, as a human being, really helped deconstruct a lot of my prejudices about, police as a profession and the humanity of given officers. So it wasn't only until a few years ago that I was looking up, trying to drag up old stories, you didn't even have to dig that deep or do FOI requests. It's just like the stories that have been out there that places like the Hartford Courant have released, that unfortunately now that places like the Alden Hedge Fund has bought them out, we're not going to see this kind of reporting. As much as I would criticize local journalists for not digging deep enough, they do the best they can with the resources they have, and they don't have much anymore. So, hey, Dr. Gonzo here at your service, Shit, ain't nobody paying me for this. They wouldn't be paying me for this, so So here's a story from 2010 when Brian Foley sued the department, Daryl Roberts, the chiefs, explicitly for sexual harassment. I'm going to read the current article so I don't, lose track. In a suit, Foley, who's been a Hartford officer for 15 years, paints an ugly picture of a police department where homophobic remarks are not only tolerated but routinely made by some members of the command staff. Foley alleges that assistant chiefs at the afraid being able to joke, homophobic remarks, said Roberts retaliated against him for complaining by blocking him from advancing and treating him especially harshly for an off-duty incident. And a lot of this behind-the-scenes stuff. This goes back to 2002. Keep in mind, it's back and forth kind of stuff, which taints the department. Skeletons that never go away, the cycles that perpetuate themselves. Almost like a dramatis persona. So Roberts dismissed it, but I believe it got real specific where Roberts was making fun of calling him SpongeBob and making fun of his haircut and making fun of the shorts he was wearing, really calling him gay. Like Daryl Roberts, Chief Daryl Roberts, based on these reports. And Foley tried to get help from Eddie Perez, but Perez kind of just was like, meh. And this article is very problematic too. But the long story short, Daryl Roberts, named in this case of sexual harassment in 2018, is chosen to be, and keep in mind, he retired with a 6-figure pension. But then he's given a cushy 6-figure job as head of security for Hartford Public Schools. The same Hartford Public Schools that a couple years back was dealing with the ghost of Eduardo Janao and the fact that they systematically covered up that they knew there was a known predator in the school system who they tried to move around, and he was grooming people. And you have people working in Hartford Public School systems like Jonathan Swan, like the chief executive officer, one of the chief officers more or less, who had been more or less fired from his job before up in Springfield for covering up student-on-student sexual harassment cases that they bungled. So Hartford Schools has a dark history, again, and this is directly tied into the Hartford Police Department, and Daryl Roberts, who I believe is still the head of their security, of our prison pipeline. Daryl Roberts sued for being homophobic. So you think, these things, but then when they did reports on Daryl Roberts, an IAD, an Internal Affairs Department report, said that the management of his office was, quote, lax and sometimes non-existent. Okay, these are the stooges that we have run these departments that, can say the right things and look the right parts, like Jason Thody, but ultimately are incompetent swine. I'll say it as bluntly as I can. And then I don't know if you remember in 2018, Hartford Council settled, I think, $180,000 lawsuit. Again, chump change, really. To Renee Lamarck Muir, who I believe, it's unclear whether it was directly because her fellow officers thought she was a lesbian. But yeah, she came across that way. I don't know if she was in real life. I think perhaps maybe. But the people in her department were mocking her sexuality, were mocking her, making jokes. They made jokes about her in front of a witness they were trying to question. They demeaned her, all right? They weren't responding to her when she was calling for help one time, okay? They put her life at risk. So she gets a measly, payout for that. Again, in this department in 2018 that has people like Jason Thody in there, and they changed the chiefs around. So then when we see that the most recent case with Kelly Barrega, the LGBT liaison for the department, mind you, who's getting harassed, not just harassed, but demeaned, and she's threatening, more or less being blackmailed to have sex with Andrew Rodney, I believe a DTC, a Democratic Town Committee member of the 7th District, a good friend and buddy of Luke Bronin, helped Luke Bronin get a lot of votes. So Andrew Rodney gets away with more. He gets a 35-day suspension. That's his punishment. 35-day suspension. One moment. Wow, that's a close call. So yeah, Kelly Barrega. I don't think she works for the department really anymore. She's just been systematically just ruined by the sexist chauvinists in this department. And Thody, when you read between the lines, when you read these articles, it's clear that he didn't care. Let me read some from there. And this all ties back into, remember Paul West? Paul West, who's suing the department right now? Paul West, a good officer from what I hear, a good man, was one of the only people who tried to defend Kelly Barrega against Andrew Rodney. Again, Andrew Rodney, who got in trouble because he when they had one of their gun buybacks, Andrew Rodney saw a gun there, an 18 gun he really liked. So he made sure to pilfer it on the side. They get away with whatever they want. It's his male ego. He wanted the biggest dick he could get. Rodney reportedly violated the rules against, they gave him the slap on the wrist, and Thodey's still skirting around the issue. Trust me. Follow through with the women's committee meetings in Hartford Public Council, and how he comes up, and it's a complete runaround for years and years, and yet we have a city council where you have people like TJ Clark still are getting sued. Reread those text messages he sent to his aide. TJ Clark should not be there anymore. I'm sorry. Maybe he's but he's perfect. We all make mistakes, but his mistakes were damn atrocious. So they must have only kept him along because, again, everybody's got dirt on everybody. Thodey said he received a final recommendation to suspend Rodney for 5 days. All right, so then he, decided, oh no, that's not that good. But I don't know if you read Kelly Barrega's full letter that she wrote in response to all this. It was real rough. They have a section of it in here I'm going to get to. Okay. The Hartford Police Department and the city of Hartford have regularly demonstrated corrupt values and a questionable moral compass by allowing gross misconduct by favored employees. In short, our current administration has shown undeniably that a good old boys network exists, and many female officers, to include me, are made to feel that the incidents of sexual harassment and discrimination are of no consequence. So, people like Luke Bronin, spineless Luke Bronin, spineless Jason Thodey can say, oh, we can't say because these are pending lawsuits. No. They're too afraid. They're too afraid of the union reps. They're too afraid of doing the right thing, which is why this department is corrupt at its absolute core, run by a bunch of homophobic, sexist, white supremacists like Medina and Thodey. Oh, but Medina isn't white. Yes, Medina is white. All right? You don't have to be fully white to act like a conquistador and a colonizer, okay? And I mean that. I truly mean that. And here we got Jason Thodey, a person who doesn't see any, and Luke Bronin and council don't see anything ethically uncompromising. That Jason Thodey was like 18, 19. He was a coach. 12-year-old girl softball, and a girl that he coached. Did he coach to how to hit balls? He married. Oh, they met down the line and they fell in love. No. I know the male ego. Jason Thodey fell in love with that girl right then and there. My father was a youth softball coach, and my father was a pervert. And so is Jason Thodey, from what it seems like to me. And a liar and an alcoholic. So this man who's got no moral compass, who was in a drunken brawl, who is accused of saying racist stuff, is in charge of a department that's not fixing itself at all. And isn't willing to deal with it, what these demons. So, I know. I'm not losing any sleep over saying these things about these people because they're damn true. Hartford Police Department have a lot of problems. But what's done in the dark is brought to the light, they say, So, love and peace from the heart. Mr. Hartford Positive, signing off.